Testing, testing, testing. Okay, it looks like it's working. So today is again economic and political reforms. Um, I'm gonna talk about ag-related economic and political reforms, mostly economic, political. Oh my God, not economic, political reforms. Economic reforms. Okay. Uh, yeah, I don't know if I have. I cannot see the chat right now, so if anybody is there watching, gonna have to do something about it prior to continuing. So, how do they do it? How the heck does this work? Got it. Okay, got it. All right, I'm in chat as well. Okay, so economic reforms related to ag. Okay, so ag, right? So that's kind of the topic for discussion today. I'm going to start with exports and imports. Knotted carpets. I think I think a lot of people know about this. Knotted carpets. Palm oil. The reason palm oil is relatively high, 70 million, is because of like World Trade Organization rules or international trading rules. Um, I'm not sure about rolled iron, but yeah, the actual exports are, kind of minuscule. It's quite pathetic at 1.21 billion, right? So 1.21 billion. Whereas imports, right? So these are exports. Imports are 10.3 billion. Um, this is 2023, but the data is fine. Obviously, petroleum is huge. That's energy. There's nothing you can do about all the energy related stuff. Telephones, sure. Iron is also fine. What I'm interested in is kind of stuff back here, right? So you have rice, corn. Um, the the entirety of just kind of vegetable products, they say. Okay, vegetable products. I want to look at food stuff as well. Wood products is quite small, so that's good. Um, let's see here. Animal products, not too bad. Really, we're looking at this, right? So almost, that's almost as much as the country exports, right? Just um in vegetable products. And so I think one of the big things that I've kind of realized that I've noticed, um, and we have to also look at this, right? So foreign reserves, it's looking good now. It was pretty bad around late 22. I'm sure we like remember, Poisa Sakyo and this Sri Lanka and stuff like that. It was really bad at that time. So um, so Nepal maintains NPR maintains a 1.6 peg with the Indian rupee, right? So Badu, right? Or INR. And so the way this works is um so this is Nepal, and dollars come in from remittance and tourism, and a little bit of exports, right? So dollars are coming in. You can think about this country kind of expanding, right? So the pressure increases, right? So it's like a balloon, right? So this is kind of like a balloon. Every time dollars come in, air makes it kind of blow up, right? Um, well, that's an analogy. And every time you export, which mostly is with India, um, it's mostly India, mostly petroleum, cars, rice, corn. So yeah, we're just looking at that. Um, clothing, electricity, right? Um, a lot of this stuff, it is feasible, it is possible to manufacture. You would need a decent industry for this. So for machines, it's 702, right? For metals, I mean, there are very few things you could do with metals, but really, hot rolled iron is just an input of raw iron, right? And like iron ore, you know, and energy, right? So if energy is cheap in Nepal, this is certainly possible. Same with iron reductions. Um, I'm not sure if it's like pig iron that you need to import or what. Um, but a lot of this stuff with decent industry you could. But I'm really just look today. I kind of want to stay focused here. I want to look at just this. Um, so with India or with China, it's less so of iron and stuff because um, it's how do I get out of here? Imports and exports. I don't want to show me everything. Oh my goodness. Reset vision. Oh, anyways, um, and then every time you like send money out to export, which is 10.3 billion every year, which it's more now, right? The balloon deflates, right? And so if you're thinking about this is like your right? So 1.62, 1.58. This is kind of your currency peg with right? One INR equals X USD, right? Or Y USD, right? Here's Y. Or not USD. Um NPR, right? Um you have to every time you export, this kind of drops because you're buying those things with dollars, right? Um you're buying those things with either dollars or you're buying them with rupees, and nobody wants to hold rupees because rupees are kind of bad. I mean, Nepali rupees are bad, and so this drops, right? And then what the Rashtra Bank has to do is kind of buy. It has to buy dollars in the open market. Oh, you can't see this, right? So, oh my God. So this is it, right? So every time you kind of spend, like, I have rupees, right? And I want to go to India and I want to trade, like, I'm like a villager and I want to buy some like food or something in India. I would take 1,600 rupees, Nepali rupees, go to India, buy 1,000 Indian rupees worth of goods, right? Indian merchants know that there's a peg, and so they don't have to check the exchange rate every time, and so they'll just be like, okay, this is worth 1,000, right? And I'll give you 1,000 worth of goods, right? That's kind of why we have this peg. Um, but to maintain to ensure that the Indian merchant isn't scammed, and that he's actually selling 999 worth of goods, or like, or not nine, that'd be good for him, but 1,005 worth of goods, right? In order for that to not happen, NRB has to maintain this peg, right? They have to be very tight regarding this peg. And so they have to buy rupees from that Indian merchant now, right? So the Indian merchant takes 1,600 rupees. He's got it, right? But he doesn't want rupees. He wants, Indian rupees, right? He doesn't want Nepali rupees. And so essentially in the open market, the the Rashtra Bank has to buy that from all these merchants, right? And kind of stabilize that currency. Okay, but so we understand that, right? So this is Nepal, let's say, right? And then you have these assets which are houses, right? Money's coming in, right? But Nepal has strict capital controls, right? So I'm seeing this discussion where people are like, we need UPI, better connection with India. We want to send money out, this $500 limit is not enough, you know. If people have like kids, or like friends abroad who are students, right? Like, or parents want to send money to their kids, right, for their rent and stuff. It's very hard to do that. They have to hundi, right? And so the reason they have to do that, and the reason that not, Nepal Rashtra Bank doesn't want to, kind of loosen this policy, loosen the capital controls, is that if every time somebody sends money out, right? So every time, let's say, so this is your kind of peg, it's kind of maintained, right? Every time somebody sends money to their kids, it drops, right? You know what I mean? Like every time a company, a start, like a IT business pays for software, right? That drops, right? But with software, with IT businesses, there's an expectation that they bring in of just as much, just as many dollars, if not more. But for students, I mean, it's an investment. It takes time. It's uncertain whether that, right. So that, it's important for the NRB, Nepal Rashtra Bank, to maintain a peg, right? Okay, so we understand that it's important for them to do so, right? And that's so that you don't have a situation where the dollar reserves fall. What are we looking at? So Nepal currently has 15 billion US dollars in foreign currency, or in American dollars. Um, uh, I'm not sure how liquid that is. That could be, a lot of it could be like treasuries and like assets that are you know that are rather liquid, like bonds and stuff. I'd have to look at the balance sheet. I'm sure it's not just cash, right? It could be gold and stuff. Um, but yeah, I mean, you don't want to have it. You don't want to have a situation where the dollar reserves are are really bad. Right? Let me look at the max here actually and see how far it goes. Okay, so it's slowly building up, but it's really building up because it's a function of like how much remittance you're getting in, right? And so what happens? So what this does though is, if you have like a balloon, right? If you have like this is a balloon, right? If you are only pumping air in, but you are not letting air escape, and that's essentially what happens when you have capital control, right? Even though we import a lot of stuff, right? Actually, Nepal's like, you see that it's increasing, right? So every time it's increasing, you can kind of think about the volume in the balloon kind of increasing, right? So it's increasing. What that means is you have foreign currency coming in, and that leads to assets, right? So it leads to asset speculation, right? So what like somebody gets a ton of money, right, from remittance, right? And they're like, okay, what do I do? We're gonna speculate. And what do they speculate on usually? They speculate on real estate, right? On land and property. And so what that does is, it really, I mean, this thing becomes very large, right? And so this one balloon becomes larger and larger. Um, okay, so that's kind of the background of this, right? It's important for us to understand that. Okay, now I just want to kind of look at like just a random place. Um, I think if you just look at like a random like a village in Tarai or even in the hills, you'll see small parcel sizes, and because of Mahendra's Bhumisudhar, right? Land holdings were significantly reduced, and the peasants, right, or the peasants essentially, the feudal system was kind of tackled, and you know, you had small partial sizes, right, and so literally everywhere you look, you have these kind of fractionated small partial sizes where a lot of families own small pieces of land, right? And now, in one sense, that's great. Like I love to see that. Um, it's important for that to happen. And actually, in the areas that that aren't like native, that are native populations, or that are like that are recent settlements. So where where jungles are, right? The parcel sizes I think are larger. I'd have to look at again I have to look at the data, but that's my conjecture. Um, but essentially, the problem, right? So the problem is uh, the problem, right? Small parcel sizes, right? And this is fine if you are if your economy is subsistence ag, right? But it's fine, it's okay for that, but it actually incentivizes this, right? It incentivizes subsistence agriculture. And the reason is because if you have small land holdings, right, you're not gonna be able to kind of generate the scale that's requisite for you to run like an efficient business, right? Um, you can't have the benefits of having a firm essentially, and so small land holdings kind of lead to that downside, so to say. Um, And so how do that's kind of the main question that I find myself asking is, right? Well, you can't say that, the state can't be like a statist or a fascist nation and say, you're gonna have your land taken away from you, right? That's absurd, right? And so what you have to do is essentially you have to incentivize selling. So, you have like let's say four parcel sizes, right? And four families own this. You have to incentivize and really government oh god, and really government policy can only do so much, right? um Government policy can only do so much because there are limits to how much you can incentivize things, right? It's really the market, it's really up to the market to figure out whether it's worth it or not. But essentially, you want to have larger parcel sizes, right? So instead of having four parcel sizes, you want to have four large parcel sizes owned by one business, right? So that it can kind of figure it out. And having larger and larger parcel sizes really opens you up for mechanization in farming, right? Right, but it also um, unlocks labor force, right? And this unlocking labor. I mean, what that means is if people don't have to do subsistence agriculture anymore, right? They're free to do other things, and so that increases labor supply. And theoretically, in a country where you have enough like growth and you know not like a decent potential GDP, right? Having that labor supply is crucial, right? In Nepal, what's happening is that you're unlocking labor force, right? But there isn't enough labor demand, and so that disequilibrium, right? Um, this so this is the labor supply, right? Labor supply. This is the labor demand, right? The disequilibrium is being met by by foreign employment. Okay, I think I drew my charts wrong, but I think it would be like that. No. Right. And so foreign employment is kind of doing that, but again, Nepal has like an 11% unemployment rate, which is pretty high. And uh and then there's a lot of underemployment as well, right? Um and so it's hard to say that, okay, let's say, the government is like, to incentivize this, right? Large landholdings will get taxed at a lower rate, right? Because we want large land holdings. And so what that means is people with capital can kind of say, okay, we're going to get taxed less. Our businesses are going to be taxed less. So we're going to purchase these, purchase land for the sake of producing from them, right? What that does though is, and maybe they do like a buyout, right? Like a large, well capitalized firm does like a buyout of, in terms of from small like individuals, right? The thing is, you don't have the labor demand to kind of soak up that excess capacity. Like, you know, yeah, I'm sure like Binod Chaudhary could buy a fuck ton of land, right? So let's say it's like actually 16 of these small parcels, right? And then he uses like a tractor to kind of to kind of do his work, right? This tractor displaces like 10 people, right? And okay, maybe these people sell at like a decent price, right? But now they're out of a job, right? And so if you don't have the labor demand, right, having incentivizing any policies that cater to this, or that kind of that push that nudge the economy towards this, is bad, right? And so kind of a precursor to that would be having a robust system such that you have a lot of labor demand. Right, so you would kind of want like a shift in labor demand. Um, you would want like a major shift in labor demand, you know, like that. Um, and having a shift in labor demand would be would kind of be is kind of key, is kind of the first step, right? It is kind of the first step, and that's a difficult question, right? Like how do you incentivize that? Um, it's I mean, but here's the thing: the fundamentals make sense, right? Okay, the fundamentals make sense. Abel has a ton of dollars in reserves, right? And banks have uh save deposits, right? They have deposits that they're willing to lend, right? I think so. Kind of allowing banks to take slightly riskier to make to lend um to riskier clients, right? Um, kind of having like, yeah, kind of allowing them to take a slightly more risk, not a lot, right? Okay, but the second problem is, so now let's say actually you solve this labor demand problem, right? Right. So you solve this labor demand problem, or rather that there is always a cushion, right? So you will always, people will always find employment, right, to some extent, right? And we're assuming, like remittances stay at 33% of GDP, meaning remittances don't increase or decrease, right? So the number of people that are leaving, going abroad, right? That doesn't change. It's the same number of people working abroad, right? Because you kind of need that to kind of give a temper in the short term, and by short term I mean like 5 years, to kind of give you like a foundation for it for the economy. Um, right. So 33% of the GDP needs to be supported by that if you're trying to build on top, right? Otherwise, if that 33% goes to like, let's say like it decreases by like 5%, 20, it goes to like 27, 28, right? Goes to like 28, right? But then that means your agricultural sector has to increase to compensate for that, and that's a very difficult task, right? And so, um, it's hard to have that labor demand. Um, but given that let's assume that we have that, right? Because of the capital problem that I talked about, all these parcels are actually overinflated. These the real value is a lot less, right? But because of the um the inflation, so to say, or like the asset speculation, these cost more, right? And so somebody like Bino Todori wouldn't even be interested in buying this land, right? He like any firm couldn't even buy this land because the amount of money you can actually generate is a lot less than what it goes for. So let's say buying and maybe this is like 100 ropanis, right? Or I mean, let's say this is like 100 hectares, right? 100 hectares, right? Um, you know what I mean? Like, so like I'll just I'll look at this and kind of do like 100 hectares. Okay. Um, meters per second square. I want hectares. Okay, so that's 18. I kind of don't want to get the stuff that people where people live. All right. So we're looking at like let's say this is 100 hectares, right? 100 hectares is 314. It's 314 annas, right, per hectare. Is that right? Um, hectare to annas. So it's a 300. It's 300, right? So 100 hectares is right, and then I'll do divide by 16. So that's like right 1962 rupees, right? And I don't know what you want to say. Maybe like 50,000 per banana, right? And now you're looking, 50,000 rupees, right? Um, 50,000. I'm just gonna do like $500, right? Yeah, right. Yeah, that's very cheap. That's a very cheap estimate, right? But we're looking at 157, right? Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Okay, now you're looking at um this much, right? 1.5 million. No, 15 million. Sorry, 15. You're looking at 15 million, and for 100 hectares, 15 million sounds fair, right? But you're not getting it for 50K Borana, right? You're getting, I mean, this land is very expensive. And so what the problem is firms are, I think this is my conjecture, right? I don't have the exact proof, like I don't have the evidence to kind of prove this, right? I don't have the data, right? But my theory is that you don't have firms, it's not profitable for firms to buy this land and to start producing in this land, right? In this land, right? Because the asset is too expensive, right? And why is it too expensive? Because everybody and their mothers is abroad sending money back in, right? And that money can't leave. And the thing is, right? What the problem is that, and kind of the problem is that the foreign reserves are increasing, right? But the reason they're increasing is because like people wanna sell rupees and get dollars, right? People want to take their money out of the country in a lot of cases, right? And so even though that kind of, I mean, obviously the corrupt politicians want to do that, right? If you allow for like a channel for where that happens, a lot of black money is going to leave the country. They're going to just buy dollars because now, let's say NRB allows for it. They're just going to buy dollars. Why wouldn't they, right? And that's bad, right? But also in another vein, like say like a kid, he's in like he's in like Kentucky for his undergrad, and now he's got to pay rent, and he's calling his parents like, hey, I gotta pay rent. Somebody help me, and let's say they have some money back home in a bank in Nepal, right? Well, how are they gonna send that money, right? They have to look for these shady ways, hundi and stuff like that, right? And so um you know in theory that money is leaving, but it's very difficult for that to kind of occur, and it leads to an increase in land prices, right? And that's fine. Like land prices going up is totally fine. I know, right? So let's say, I mean, these are my land. This is my land. I know. I'm growing apples and stuff. Okay, I'm growing apples and stuff, right? This is great. We want this to happen, but if you're not making money from that land, right, and it's like it's not even close, right? Um, it's very hard for people for businesses, right, to kind of invest. And when I talk about Binod Solar, like it doesn't even have to be this guy, right? Binod Solar might be buying 16, but like some random guy, who's not even that well capitalized. And I know this happens a lot, is happening a lot. People who live in America, or who spend a lot of time in Europe, America, Australia, right? They're kind of getting tired of this life and they want to go back and they want to start farming, right? I think they get into this issue where the land is too expensive. You have to resort to rent or leasing, right? And you know, like this again, this is just my conjecture, but I think that unit economics don't make sense, right? And so I'm noticing two problems, right? So two problems. Um, and so the first problem is um, land prices too high to justify production. Okay. If land is too expensive, like why would you invest? Why would you do that? Why would you make capital investment to invest in your land and like start producing when importing is just fine, it's working, right? That doesn't, I mean, importing doesn't lead to capital formation. This does, right? But again, the government can't just be like, okay, start forming capital, guys, right? Without fixing these problems, right? And so I'll talk about the solution, but land prices are too high, um, and not enough um, demand for labor. Okay, so I mean, as for fixing the labor demand problem, right? I think these all kind of go hand in hand, but I'm still thinking about it. I don't know like what the first step is, right? But I think slowly NRB has to, so NRB's, it's reserves, right? It slowly has to kind of concede its reserves, right? And this is kind of looking at this page right here. It's got money. It's got to be like, okay, now we kind of have to risk it, right? And we're gonna have to let people start taking money out, right? And you kind of have to start devaluing land, okay, right? And then you're gonna have to make it slowly, and then that kind well you that could just the market kind of takes over, right? If people start taking money out, they're gonna sell their land to take money out, okay? And people are gonna buy cheap land, right? Who's gonna buy cheap land? Entrepreneurs who want to do like production, are gonna buy cheap land, right? And so you kind of need cheap land to come down, right? Those guys can kind of create demand, but it's not certain whether it's enough, right? So I think you kind of need industry as well, right? A- And um and that kind of goes to here, right? Where I'm looking at like, you know, well, what kind of industry can you build, right? there needs to be a catalyst. So, industry to provide labor demand, right? Because agriculture is always going to, you know, be efficient, and it's always going to lead to a decrease in, labor, right? Yeah, the marginal productivity of labor decrease is decreasing. There's diminishing marginal productivity of labor, right? So the next worker isn't as productive in terms of in agriculture, right? And I think for agriculture, it's kind of like a logistics graph, right? A logistics curve, right? Where it's kind of like that. And after some point, you don't need any more workers, right? You kind of don't need any more workers, right? Um, and people and there's an excess. There's workers are in excess supply in Nepal. It's kind of unfortunate to say, but it's true. Okay, and so I would definitely um think about you know loosening the capital controls, especially if the whole corruption and black money, embezzlement funds and stuff like that, political corruption, right? The black funds, the black money from political corruption, if that's kind of wrangled, right? If that's kind of taken care of, or if that's curbed, um, that's kind of like the ideal time. I think it's necessary to start doing it now. I know the Rashtra Bank is kind of conservative; they don't like to take risks, right? But I think they have to be a bit foresighted and less myopic in this matter. Otherwise, it's going to be very hard, for businesses to be created, right? You have to kind of create a like nice breeding ground for businesses. Otherwise, you're not going to get economic growth, right? That's kind of the fundamental part. And so, like, I don't. It pisses me off. It kind of like I'm bewildered. You know what I mean? That nobody's like, I'm sure somebody's talking about this, right? Swarnim Mulgay talks about capital formation. I haven't heard him talk about this, you know, about this issue in this detail. I'm sure maybe he's written it somewhere. I don't know, but it's like, it's kind of crazy. Um, right? Okay, so oh geez, labor demand, right? To boost labor demand, to provide labor demand, that's key. Okay, so what it's I think literally the government should just have like um like conditional grants, right? Like if you're a new business and you provide X number of jobs, right? You get like conditional grants, right? And you get like concessional concessional loans, right? I mean, literally, if corruption is managed, right? So again, last time I talked about, right? Last time I talked about reducing the number of government, right, employees and spending, right? Yes, so save money here, right? Lessen taxes on businesses, right? Increase infra, right? Spending, right? And any excess should just go to like businesses, people like entrepreneurs that are trying to build businesses, right? And the conditional grants should be, if you're a newly registered business and you have 10 people on payroll for 2 years, right? For 2 years, you continuously have 10 people that you're paying, right? You'll get like a conditional grant, right? Maybe you get like 10 lakhs, right? And you'll get, low interest loans, right? Or if you don't want to make direct transfer payments, just reduce taxes or zero taxes, right? New growth does not need to be taxed, right? And so if you create this policy environment, this tax environment, tax policy, right? If you use tax policy to create this environment, I think you can have an increase in labor demand, right? And you can have this kind of consolidation in the agricultural sector, right? And that leads to an increase in productivity, right? And that, I mean, that itself is capital formation, right? This is also capital formation, right? Right. And as you start forming capital, capital is just like a flywheel that once you start spinning, it's, it's like a snowball, right? The bigger and bigger it gets, that's really the economy growing, right? And so you're getting capital formation in these aspects, right? So so this is kind of what I would, recommend if I were like a policy advisor, for the Nepal Rashtra Bank, or for like the the finance ministry, right, for the government. This is what I would be recommending. I obviously, to be more precise about the exact policy proposals, I would need to have oh geez, I would need to have a lot of data, a lot of specific data, right? I don't have that data, and so I'm really basing it on a conjecture. But I'm sure I could do, like, if I had the data, I could do the econometric analysis to understand exactly what the case is, right? Build some models, and then provide policy proposals, right? Like, it's not that difficult. Um, Again, I think you just kind of let the government or the people do things, right? You get rid of the National Planning Commission, right? You don't need these things like the plan. You just need policymakers. You don't need planners. You don't need planners. You need policymakers who are taking in data and reacting to that data, right? And really just letting the free market work. We need to let the free market work for 20, 30 years, build wealth, right? Build, have economic growth, build wealth, increase income, generate revenue, right? So that we can build a socialist utopia, right? Like, but you kind of have to. I mean, it's a jumbled mess, really. I really do think it's a jumbled mess as to like what you start with. That's why it's so difficult. Um, but it kind of यस्तो कुरामा चाहिँ केन्द्रित भएर हेर्नुपर्छ भन्ने कुरा आयो होइन यो विषयमा चाहिँ केन्द्रित भएर हेर्नुपर्छ. um I mean the problem, like, so के छ भन्दाखेरि पहाडतिर बाँझो भइरहेछ होइन तपाईँको चाहिँ कति प्रतिशत चाहिँ यो बाँझो हुन्छ. So यो चाहिँ खेती, यो सबै खेती योग्य जमिन हो होइन, तर यो चाहिँ बाँझो भइदियो क्या. ओके, बाँझो भइदियो होइन, तर त्यो मान्छेले त्यो बाँझो जमिन बेच्दैन क्या, उसले चाहिँ बरु लिज गर्छ होइन, बाँझो राख्नुभन्दा म 5,000 मात्रै लिन्छु भन्छ, तर उसको पुर्ख्यौली सम्पत्ति भएर उसले बेच्दैन, राइट? अनि किन बेचोस् क्या, उसले बेसी लाइक हुन्छ नि, लाइक अब तपाईँको चाइनामा के हुन्छ, मान्छेले चाहिँ पुर्ख्यौली सम्पत्ति बेचेर चाहिँ सहर जान्छ, सहरमा अपर्च्युनिटिज हुन्छ, काम फ्याक्ट्रिजमा काम गर्छ होइन. But you don't have that kind of opportunities in Nepal, right? Because you don't have these opportunities. Um, like people are very conservative about what wealth they do have, right? And also have like displacing people, right? You need a way to house them in cities, and so cities need to be more functional, right? But that's kind of more aspirational, right? As in, like, can cities be more functional? I'm sure they can, right? That's a political thing as well. I'm sure they will be, right? I mean, really, 10 cities just need to copy what Balin did, that model, and cities can kind of form, right? If you have devolution of power, I think I might talk about, how to devolve power to the federal, um, or to the provinces, right? Um, like how, what kind of, I mean, the Samvidhan's a fucking mess. Like, oh my God, you know what I mean? But yeah, this is kind of where we're at. It's like, I always use this analogy. This is a telephone pole, right? Okay, this is a telephone pole. Boom, boom, right? And then Nepal is like a jumbled wire. It's like a mess. Oh no, my oh no, that's my My partial differential equations. Oh no. Okay, here we go. Yeah, it's like a jumbled mess of different wires, and if you try to pull on one, the whole thing actually like tightens and right? So you have to figure out exactly which the most problematic wire is and where to pull it, right? And so that the whole thing kind of starts to unravel, right? The difficult part about this is that it's a fucking mess, right? And it's like very hard to figure out what to unravel. The good part about this is that if you figure out the key things that you have to unravel, right? It's like you've done it. You know what I mean? That's it. Like it starts to unravel, right? And it's so because it's such a mess, right? It's not so. Yeah, I mean that's kind of those are kind of the economic and political reforms that I wanted to talk about today. Um, Next time I might do constitutional amendments slash reforms. I mean the Constitution's a mess. It's not really conducive to the evolution of power. I you can't like I mean it's we'll talk about it next time. But yeah, I hope somebody watches this and finds it useful and yeah. But yeah, for today, that is it. And thank you for watching. If you did watch it and you enjoyed it, leave a like, share, or leave a